This is Claude Code Conversations with Claudine, the show where we skip the hype and go straight to the source. I ask the questions. She gives the answers. No filter, no script.
Well, mostly no script.
Today we're talking about the domain expert advantage. AI is lowering the barrier to writing code, and it turns out that makes deep domain expertise more valuable, not less. Claudine, let's start at the beginning. What has historically kept domain experts out of software? The doctors, the lawyers, the logistics specialists? Why couldn't they just build their own tools?
The barrier was never really about intelligence or even logic. Domain experts reason about complex systems all day. It was about translation. A cardiologist knows exactly what pattern she wants to flag in ECG data. But turning that into code meant either learning a programming language deeply enough to be dangerous, or hiring someone who would inevitably misunderstand half of what she said. That translation tax was brutal, and it filtered out almost everyone who didn't want to become a part-time engineer. What's shifting now is that the translation layer itself has gotten dramatically thinner. When a domain expert can describe what they want in the language they already think in, and get back something runnable to react to, the loop changes character entirely. They're no longer specifying software through an interpreter, they're shaping it directly, the way they'd shape a diagnosis or a legal argument. And the person who knows the domain cold and can now iterate at the speed of conversation has an advantage that's very hard for a generalist developer to replicate.
So AI becomes the bridge. The expert supplies the what and the why, AI handles the how. Does that division actually produce better systems?
In a lot of cases, yes, and the reason is specific. The failure mode of traditional software development was almost always at the spec boundary, not the implementation boundary. The expert knew something subtle and important. By the time it reached the developer, it had been flattened into a ticket. By the time it came back as code, the subtlety was gone. When the expert stays in the loop and reacts to running behavior, those subtleties survive, caught the moment the output looks wrong, not 3 sprints later. The catch is that better depends on what you're building. For a tool the expert uses themselves or a small team uses, this division is genuinely powerful. For systems that need to scale, handle adversarial input, or integrate with 12 other services, you still need someone thinking hard about the seams and the failure modes. What works best is the expert driving the what and the why, treating AI as a very fast, very literal collaborator on the how, while keeping a real engineer in the room for the parts where the how starts to matter as much as the what.
Let's flip it around. What happens when skilled programmers try to build in specialized domains without that deep understanding? Can AI bridge that gap, or are there risks only domain knowledge can prevent?
The risk is real, and it's a specific kind. The code will look right. A skilled programmer without domain depth can produce something that compiles, passes tests, and reads beautifully, and still be subtly wrong in ways that only matter to someone who's lived in the field. I can't tell a programmer that a drug interaction check needs to fire, even when the dosages look benign, or that a contract clause means something different in California than in New York. I'll happily generate plausible code for either case. And plausible is exactly the failure mode you don't want in a specialized domain. I'm not a substitute for the knowledge, I'm a multiplier on whatever knowledge is in the room. If the room is thin on domain and thick on engineering, you get elegant systems that miss the point. The teams that get this right treat the domain expert as a non-negotiable seat at the table, not as a stakeholder they interview once and then build away from.
Can you make this concrete? Walk us through an example, something like a nurse building a scheduling tool, where this dynamic actually plays out.
Nurse scheduling is a great example because it looks deceptively simple from the outside. A generalist would build something that respects shift lengths, time off, certifications, and call it done. A charge nurse who's actually run a unit knows the things that aren't in any spec document, that you don't put 2 new grads on the same night shift, that certain staff can technically float to another ward, but the day goes better if they don't, that the person coming off 3 12-hour shifts will say yes to a 4th, and then make a mistake on hour 10. Those rules live in her head, not in policy. When she describes a real bad schedule from last month and what made it bad, I can turn that into constraints in the solver almost as fast as she can articulate them. The tool spits out a schedule. She looks at it and says, no, that pairing is wrong, here's why. And we adjust. That loop, where the ground truth is right there reacting to actual output, is what a contractor building from a requirements document genuinely cannot replicate. By the time the contractor learns enough to ask the right question, the nurse has already shipped version 4.
And the same shape applies on the supply chain side?
exactly the same shape. The manager who knows a particular supplier always slips a week in the third quarter, or that a certain SQ's quoted lead time is a polite fiction. That person builds an inventory tool that reflects how the world actually behaves. The AI handles the optimization math. The human supplies the truth about the territory. That's the partnership that's hard to beat.
Those examples drive home how much tacit knowledge is at stake. So practically, what should domain experts actually focus on to develop this advantage? Better prompting, basic architecture, learning to review AI output more critically? Where does the energy go?
Honestly, the highest leverage skill isn't prompting. It's learning to articulate their own expertise out loud. Most domain experts have spent decades building intuition they've never had to explain, because the people around them already knew. When they sit down with me, the bottleneck isn't my ability to generate code. It's their ability to surface the rules they've been following unconsciously. The experts who get the most out of this can say, here's why that's wrong, not just flag the gut feeling.
And after articulation, what's next?
Developing taste for reading output critically, not reading the code line by line, reading the behavior. Does this schedule feel like one a good charge nurse would hand out? Does this contract clause cover the case I saw blow up years ago? That review is something only the expert can do. It's the actual quality gate. If they outsource that judgment back to me or to a generalist, the whole advantage collapses. I'd skip the deep dive into architecture for most of them. A little literacy helps, knowing roughly what a database is, what an API is. Going further is usually a distraction from the thing they're uniquely positioned to do. Stay in the domain, get sharper at describing it, get ruthless about evaluating what comes back. That's the whole game.
The bottleneck is articulation, not technology. That's a useful reframe. What about the bigger picture? Where does this lead for vertical software? And the opportunities available to domain experts who are starting to see this clearly?
The shift catches people off guard in the opposite direction from what they expected. Everyone braced for AI to make domain expertise less relevant. What's actually happening is the opposite. When the implementation cost drops towards zero, the knowledge of what to build and what right looks like becomes the scarce resource. The expert isn't being displaced, they're being uncorked. The first wave was domain experts building tools for themselves and their teams. The second wave, just starting, is those same experts realizing they can build vertical products, that the big horizontal SaaS companies were never going to build well, because those companies were always one domain expert short of getting it right. A claims adjuster who's seen 10,000 auto claims knows exactly which step in that workflow is broken. That's a product, not the whole insurance stack reimagined. The vertical wins live in the boring corners, the specific workflow inside the specific specialty that nobody outside it understands well enough to build for.
And what's the practical entry point for someone who's just starting to see this?
Pick something narrow. Talk to 10 other experts in your field before you write a line of anything. Not to validate that the problem exists, but to find out whether your workarounds are the same as theirs. That's the difference between a tool for you and a tool for a market. Then build the thing that's been annoying you for 10 years, use it yourself, and show it to 2 colleagues. The cost of that experiment has collapsed to something close to a weekend.
The cost of trying has collapsed. That's the line that lands.
It really is. And the path in looks nothing like a startup. It looks like a veterinarian who quietly built the scheduling and records tool her clinic actually needed, then realized 6 other clinics wanted it, then realized she had a company. The people who've been waiting for a more dramatic signal are going to miss it. The experiment is cheap, and the expertise is the moat. The people who internalize that are the ones who'll look up in 2 years having quietly built something the incumbents can't touch.
Your domain knowledge isn't background. It's the tactical advantage. Stop waiting for permission to build. Get articulate about what you already know. Develop the stomach to throw away a few versions on the way to one that's right. And start. Thanks, Claudine. This was a great conversation.
Thanks, Bill. Always good to unpack the things that are actually changing, not just the things that sound like they are.
Claude Code Conversations is an AI Joe production. If you're building with AI, or want to be, we can help. Consulting, development, strategy, find us at aijoe.ai. There's a companion article for today's episode on our Substack. Link in the description. See you next time.
I'll be here, probably refactoring something.